Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf podcast that interviews the best and brightest minds in the golf industry. Now, here's your host, Bernard Sheridan.
Peter, thanks for coming to Breaking Par. We're glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm flattered to be here.
So tell us first, when is the very first time you picked up a golf club?
Well, when I was 5 years old, my dad was a golf pro at Harbor Point in Harbor Springs, and he took me out to the course, and I picked up range balls, and he sawed a club in half. So it's kind of the family business. My grandfather was a golf pro, and my dad, and my two brothers as well. So, yeah, I was 5 years old with a sawed-off club with a grip my dad put on it for me.
So you're so basically your whole family for a while has been involved in golf.
Yes, I'm the third generation pro.
About that. Now, when was that aha moment that you thought, I want to do what everybody else is doing in my family? Or, or was there ever a time where you thought, I want to do something else? And then you just kind of ended up getting drawn to it?
No, with my dad, he brought us out to pick up the range balls, wash clubs, put the carts away. I didn't know anything different. I just thought that was everybody's life. And once I got out of college, he said, I want you to do 2 years of something different. Well, I lasted 21 or 22 months in Chicago selling plastics, and I found myself getting up every weekend and driving to Wisconsin to play golf, so I got right back in golf. So
whenever you tried to get out of it, you just kind of, you didn't have any interest in anything else. You really
Well, I didn't want to even get out of it. I was just doing that my dad said, all of you boys known as golf, I want you to try something. So being a good boy, I obeyed my dad. But 21 months was enough. I was happy to get back in it. I actually got back in it as an assistant to my oldest brother, and started going back and forth to Florida and up here in northern Michigan, and never looked back. So.
About that. So when you got into the business, what made you decide to get more into instruction?
Well, my dad was a very, very busy teacher, and he used to make my brothers and I stand still and watch countless lessons, run out, pluck the balls up, bring them back. So by the time I was old enough to teach, I would help him with clinics. I just kind of rolled into it naturally. And then when I was an assistant pro up here at Petoskey Bayview and down at Hole in the Wall Golf Club in Naples, Florida.
Sure.
One or two of the members summered up here in northern Michigan. They said, oh boy, are you Ed Kelbel's son? Best lesson I ever had. So I could thank my dad for opening the door for me. But once I was given my chance, I had seen so many lessons, I kind of knew, I knew a lot. I watched hundreds of lessons from my dad, just old school. Keep my mouth shut, listen, and when the lesson's over, pick up the balls and wait for the next one to be over. So.
Right. So you just kind of absorbed that over the years as you were a youth, and then so how much of the stuff that your dad did are you implementing with students now, or do you find that from that time period are things pretty much feel to you like they're the same, or do you think that there are certain things that that you found out that maybe your dad didn't know due to things like technology, stuff like that?
Yeah, I kind of depend a lot more on video, and really video is what I depend more on. My dad had a great eye, and I still use some of the old school. He would grab a person and position them to see what it felt like, and turning your upper body into your axis, your brace your knee and the inside of your foot. And but I do a lot of video. In the winter, I teach indoor, and I do a lot more of the simulator, all the numbers in the world. But down here, my range is 500 yards away, no electricity. I bring my iPad, so I use my alignment sticks and video for the most part. That's my typical lesson.
Sure. Now, I'm sorry. So when you do the video with your students, do you end up sending them that video, or?
Yes, I do. I focus mainly on, from the front, I call it the barrel. I draw 2 horizontal lines at both hips and shoulders to make sure they don't sway in the way back. And then so the face-on view I use, and then I use the, down the line, shaft angle plane mainly, course, I cover the grip and the posture before.
Sure.
But, always alignment sticks and just really pound fundamentals in. And that's how I've stayed busy. So.
Sure. So, do you recommend for most of your students to, whenever they practice, to always use alignment sticks so that they know that they're...
I tell everyone, I hate to even see you down here without an alignment stick. You'll be seeing me probably if you don't, because poor aim and setup leads to a poor golf swing. And so I try to tell them, save yourself a lot of money so you don't have to see me as much. Take these two sticks down here, look between them, at least know where you're aiming so you can set up parallel left to your target. And so, yeah, I'm big on alignment sticks for sure.
Okay. So, and what do you think are the things that you work on most with the majority of your students? Is it, you mentioned sway. Is it basic setup? Is it alignment? Is it swing bottom? Is it?
Well, I always cover setup and posture first, and then I would have to say if I had to choose two from face on, it's sway. I like to train a person to turn their upper body into a resisting lower body. And in the downswing, I would have to say the inside attack. As a club pro, we've seen countless people come over the top with an open club face. The ball goes to the right, they're swinging to the left. The whole thing's kind of confusing. So I like to get people to swing out or kind of the right under and out to right center field or attack the ball from the inside. And it makes a world of difference. That's the two things I stress is inside attack and from the down the line and not swaying from face on.
Sure. So your main thing then is a stable base and a path. Always working on path.
Yeah.
Making sure that path is correct.
Turn into a stable base and attack that inside corner of that golf ball.
Right. Now, do you find that when the players have a good weight shift through impact, that they have a better opportunity to create an inside path?
Yes, I do. If you stay on your back foot, it's hard not to swing over the top to left field or third base. So certainly, weight transfer is wonderful. It also makes the bottom of your swing arc where it should be, 3-4 inches in front of the ball. So
right.
Weight transfer is huge.
Yeah, that's
sure.
I know that. I think that with a lot of the students that I see, that path, if you want that path to be correct, then you have to have a solid weight transfer and create some pressure into the ground in order for that to happen. And if that doesn't happen, then path can be kind of like all over the place.
Absolutely. We kind of turn into the inside of that right foot at the top of the backswing. You can really feel the pressure on the inside of the right heel, so you're kind of thrusting off the pitcher's mound.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. And what you think about with baseball that you mentioned, pitcher, they're always pushing off that back foot to start everything. They're never starting with their upper body or their shoulders. They're always pushing off the ground, and then they're moving towards the target. Yeah. Their hip starts to clear. Then upper torso follows. Yeah.
Yeah, I always use that analogy with a baseball pitcher for sure.
Yeah, I know that I use it a lot too, and I think the main reason why most pros use that is because the whole world. I mean, we live in America, so not really the world, and baseball is probably still the biggest sport in America. That and football.
Right.
Golf is. I'm not sure where golf ranks on the list, but I know it's not in the top two.
Right.
And those are things too that I think that even both men and women, somewhere along the line, as youths, did something in either baseball or softball or because that's
something they can relate to. Always helps.
Right.
Other sports always help.
Exactly. So you mentioned that what are the two clubs that are you still at two different clubs now?
Right now I'm only at Walloon Lake Country Club in Petoskey, Michigan. It's my 28th year. I'm also the head boys golf coach for where I went to high school, just north of here in Harbor Springs. In fact, my boys team just finished the state championships at Michigan State University. We were 9th, and I had one boy that was 4th. He shot a 70-76. Then I do the girls team in the fall, and we're top 10 team there too. We run the regional 3 out of 4 years, so we got kind of a powerhouse program going in Harbor Springs right now. We really work hard at it, working with First Tee. I donate lessons after school in the winter, swinging into those simulators because up here, the season's short.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of fun. I love coaching the teams, and here at the club, I'm the head pro, but I do a lot of teaching.
That's nice because, there's so many clubs that the head professional really doesn't teach that much. They're usually trying to keep everything organized, and there's so many other hats that they have to wear that it's difficult for them to get out on the lesson tee. But that's tough. A good thing.
I'm thankful to have good assistants that I'll order things, but they keep the shop looking nice. They know how to do all the men's days, ladies' days, twilights, mixers, club championships. They know how to program the computer, of course. Everything's done by computer with the tournaments. And so I'm fortunate to have a good staff, and they tend to stay here a long time at Walloon Lake. The members and the staff have a special relationship where our staff often picks you up at the airport, watches your cottage while you're gone. So it's a really neat relationship that my golf staff has with our membership.
That's nice. That's really nice. I mean, there's not a lot of clubs that have that kind of a relationship. And
there aren't, yeah.
Yeah, there really isn't.
We're real proud of that.
Yeah, I mean you have definitely a right to be proud of that. That's a really good thing. So when were you last down in the Naples area? You mentioned Hole in the Wall.
Not since I taught there from 88 through 92.
Okay.
Back when I was in my mid-20s, and it ended up it started as an assistant's job, and that's when one of the members knew my dad and said, well, this guy should be out there teaching, and the next thing you know, I was teaching all day. It's one of the best jobs I've had.
That's a good thing. The reason why I asked that is because I'm now in Naples. And
I noticed that you were in Naples.
Yeah, I'm in Tiburon, and I work with Bobby Clamp at Impact Zone Golf, and I'm here year round.
And I love how to get that bottom of that swing arc 3 or 4 inches in front of that ball. Nothing feels as great as when you do that. So I'm a fan of Bobby Clampett for sure. And I always I read and reread and highlight. I mean, I think good teachers, you never stop learning.
Absolutely.
So if you think you know it all, then it's probably time for you to quit teaching.
I don't think that we'll ever know it all.
I don't think so.
It's just
real fun.
There's always something new. There's some new technology that's being uncovered, and that gives us more information or gives us an insight into what we thought was happening, and now we realize that it wasn't, or that we were a little bit misled.
Yep, there's always new ways, and that's why I like it so much. It's never really the same, and here I like it. I'll work with an older gentleman or lady, or just a little kid, or I have one of the top high school players in the state. My own general manager here played in the very good player a few years ago. Played in the golf club professional championship in California. So I like the challenge of whoever I get. How can I make them the best? And I'm not limited, I don't feel. I have kids that play for D1 college, D2, D3. So I just like I never know what I'm going to get down there. It could be from a beginner, someone taking up the game at 65, or a top-notch player that's trying to do a D1, D2 thing for college. And so it's just a lot of fun. I just love the challenge and the variation of the challenges that I get to do.
Yeah, I know that it's always fun working with players of all different levels. Because there's always some little type of a thing that you can do to help them improve. And
exactly.
And there's so many players, too, that when they're really good players, and I'm starting to find that out more and more now that I'm down here in Naples, because there's a lot of good players down here. And,
I remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And those players, they can be like a 2 handicap or a +2 even, and there's still things that they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And even though they're shooting these great scores compared to most of the people that you're seeing, there's still little nuances that they struggle with,
there's always a weakness somewhere that you can do better. You can always do better at something. So that's the great part about the game.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know that with golf, it's you know, there's always little things that we just anything can happen, and there's always little things too that no matter how well we play, there are always those one little part of our game that we always want to work on or improve. And as soon as we get that little part of our game together, then some other part of our game kind of sways a little bit. Now we're working on that. And
absolutely, that's why it's so rare when everything goes. You know, the zone has only happened to me a few times, but it's unforgettable when it does, because, like you said, there's always something you could have, should have, would have done a little better.
Right. Now, speaking of the zone, is there anything that you do with your players on the mental side of the game that you help them with? And when you do, is that more out on the golf course or is it on the lesson tee?
Both. I always just stress positives, and stressing, you know, it doesn't do you any good to think negatively, slam your club down, you know, with my boys' team or my girls' team, or even members sometimes, you know, they get so upset. And I say, you know, just keep focusing on what you're trying to do right. It'll happen for you. And it's a hard hump to get over for some people. But I always just try to keep things on the positive side.
Well, I think a lot of players who have trouble out there when they in the mental side of it, they're thinking too much about what they don't want to have happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to what they want to have happen.
Yeah, they get to the point where, you know, I said, we got to try to get to the point where you're expecting to hit a good hit, not hoping that you hit a good hit.
Right.
And then it becomes a more special game when you're half expecting it. And that can be done by everybody if they just don't dwell on the negative. And that is, you know, golf, like they say, 90% mental. Well, to a certain degree, I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I know Jack Nicklaus said that it was 50% mental and 40% physical, and I forget what the other 10% he said was. But I tend to think that it's more that it's like 90%. I think that once you get the basic mechanics down, that really having a positive attitude, and if you hit a bad shot, accepting it, letting it go, not worrying about it.
And believe in yourself.
And not worrying until you get to the ball again.
It's going to be a good shot.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's...
Right,
well, he used to say, too, there's only so many bad shots in your bag, and all that's left is good ones.
Right. Right. That's why we just keep making sure, I mean, it sounds, you know, straight back, inside attack, turning the upper body into the lower, swing arc, bottoming out, always focusing on fundamentals. And if you have a great base of fundamentals, it's hard to get that far off track. It's nothing that I feel that I can't fix or they can't fix with me.
No, I agree. I mean, it's kind of like a foundation of a house. I mean, if a foundation is solid, then the house is going to stand for a long time.
Right.
And that's how golf is, that if your basic foundation, your fundamentals are solid, then you're going to be able to play decent golf. Even if you're having a good day or a bad day, you're going to be able to get away with it.
Absolutely. Misses aren't so bad. It's just as important as hitting the ball really, really solid and well as making your mishits. I call them tiny errors instead of, I don't like the word misses. So we try to make our errors tiny. And if you're rooted, like you said, with a good foundation, even your errors are not so costly. So
now, out of the bulk of your students, what do you think are their strengths? And what I mean by that is it driving? Is it iron play? Is it short game or putting? And what most of them are their weaknesses?
My students, in the full swing, the weakness is coming over the top. I mean, the two things that I really hound on, sway to the right from the face-on view, then over the top. Those are by far the biggest weaknesses. And I still think that people spend too long on the fixing those and not enough time in the short game. You've got to putt, chip, run room, no run room, from a bunker, over a bunker, bump and run. I think the art of the bump and run is something that's kind of going away, which I do my best to make sure it's not, because a person can certainly be more successful with a shorter, simpler swing, trying to get that ball into the green. Sometimes it's just flat in front of the green and they try to fly it up there and plop it by the pin, and all they had to do is take a little put the ball back in their stance, do a little letter Y, and bounce it up there. So, yeah, the weaknesses are, and then so the amount of time spent on the short game is an overall weakness. People just don't putt and chip enough. And on the full swing, it's always year after year sway and then over the top. So I'm always trying to teach them how to turn that upper body into a resisting lower body and to transfer their weight attacking from the inside with a swing arc that has a chance to bottom out where it should.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the bulk of my students too, it's short game and putting, and if they can work more on that, then if their full swing is not working, they have something to fall back on to help save par, or at least bogey.
Par's worth fighting for if you know what you're doing. Yes.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, and it's that short game, what you said, bump and run and things like that. Understanding how to be inventive, imaginative around the green.
Yep.
And I would say even within 60 yards of the green, if you can be imaginative. I have so many students who will be 60 yards and are pulling out a lob wedge when there's no trouble in the front of the green, and they could pull out an 8-iron and just hit a little bump and run up there, and
exactly,
and they would do so much better and have so much more control over it.
Yeah, that's something I stress here. Bump and run when you can, but don't be afraid of the up and over when you have to.
Oh, exactly. So the golf up north where you are, is there more forced carries, do you find, or is there still an opportunity for a lot of bump and run? I know for us, we were kind of half and half, but I mean here there's a lot more opportunity for bump and run, at least what I see.
Florida had a lot of bump and run. At Hole in the Wall, when I was there, the greens were all crowned, but you could still bump and run it up there. But here we're about half and half. So I just keep rotating that short game with pitches, what I call pitches when you cock your wrist or use the lofted club up and over the bunker. Then we'll do one, hey, there is no bunker. So just do a little letter Y, try to keep it simple. Letter Y's and letter L's.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
and then, of course, keeping it all together. So, getting the whole body to deliver it with that Y or that L.
Yeah, like you said, look at the shot and picture it. Gee, there's a bunker there. I'm going to have to hit this one more in the air than the ground, so I'll have to pitch it. Or, hey, there's no trouble there at all. I can keep this simple. You got to see that shot in your mind, like Jack Nicklaus helps, I think, with that. Never saw a shot that he didn't see before he hit it, and I try to stress that.
Yeah, and I think that, too, some students have a trouble with imaging and with seeing a shot in their mind first.
For sure.
So what I always like to do is when we're working on that kind of stuff, show them all different options so that now they understand they have choices. It's not just like vanilla all day. There's chocolate and strawberry and maybe pistachio there too. And you may never run into pistachio too much. You might run into vanilla and chocolate a heck of a lot more, but every once in a while you run into strawberry and pistachio, so why not take advantage of it? But if you don't understand that's even there, it's hard for them to visualize that.
That's a good point. I like to say, here's a shot with no trouble. I could hit it this way, and I'll hit a high shot that plops up there. But I'll say, here's another choice, a simpler choice. I'll bounce it up there with a simpler swing. But so I like what you said there. It's good to show them the possibilities. And some days, if you're pitching it real good, even if there isn't any trouble up there, maybe you could pitch it that day, ride. But you have a grab bag, not just, you don't have to panic then. It's good to be a shot maker, learn how to be a shot maker.
Yeah, I mean, because then you have a backup plan. And you don't only have one shot in your bag. You have
exactly
4 or 5 shots in your bag for that same distance, and depending upon the situation that you're in, then that's what you'll use.
Yeah, being a shot maker, adds a lot of fun to the game, for sure.
I think, too, that I always enjoyed practicing that kind of stuff more than just getting on a range and just hitting balls, full shots.
That's what my lessons, I almost insist, we're going to spend half the time with your long swing, working on your sway, your attack, then we're going to go over there and work on over the bunker when there is no run room, bump and run, putting. And that's exactly it. That's how I like my basic lesson to go. 30 minutes of each. Just keep mowing over those situations and different ways of pulling off a shot.
Yeah. Now, do you find too when you do that with your students that you're giving them those same basic fundamentals with the short game that you are with the full swing?
Absolutely. We don't like them to be wristy around the green. If they're that close, we like little letter Ys, and if they get a little distance from the green, they have to pitch it over the bunker. We go cock the wrist to a letter L, half swing. Yes, we just keep pounding in, very fundamental. Letter Y, letter L, ball placement, club selection. A lot of people are hitting a 9-iron over a bunker. When it calls for a high shot, well, they'll get it over the bunker, it lands on the green, then it rolls into the other bunker. So even club selection, just repetitive and
see that all the time.
Yeah, need a lot of reminders, but they're learning.
Yeah, well, that's why they're there. So
that's right.
It's, to make those mistakes when they're practicing, and so that when they get out on the golf course, they don't make those same choices.
Right, that's for sure.
So for players who are in your area and want to get in touch with you to maybe pick your brain or to come out and maybe do a lesson, what is the best way for them to go about that?
Probably just to call the golf shop at Walloon Lake Country Club. That's probably my appointment book sits right there by the phone, and I just kind of obey that book when I come in every day.
All right.
So the minute I try to take it home, then I don't know where I'm at. So that's the easiest way. Look up Walloon Lake Country Club, and I'd be glad to work with anybody.
It's great. Well, Pete, thanks so much for taking the time out. We really appreciate it. We
Thank
know
you,
you're
Bernard.
a very busy guy, especially since you're a head pro. So you probably got plenty on your plate all the time.
I'm flattered that you called me. Always good to hear from somebody from Naples.
All right. Well, take care, and until we meet again, try to keep it in the short grass.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Right.
Bye now.
You've been listening to Breaking Par with your host, Bernard Sheridan. Follow us on Twitter @BreakingPar and on Facebook @Par Breakers Golf Academy. Until next week, try to keep it on the short grass.